spring of 1894, Marie Sklodowska was in her third year as a student at the Sorbonne. She planned to take one more degree and then return home to live with her father in Warsaw. Her brilliant examination success had given her enough confidence to relax the rigors of unremitting study and admit other interests into her life.
Mademoiselle?
Monsieur Lamotte, I have repeatedly asked you not to...
To stop spending money on you, yes. But these were free. I got up at 5 and went out into the country and picked them.
You must have enjoyed that. It's a fine morning.
They're for you.
I would rather not.
But I can't throw them away.
Then take them home and put them in some water.
I should be miserable every time I looked at them.
Oh, very well. What am I supposed to do with them? I shan't be going home for hours.
You could put them in a retort.
A beaker.
Ah, yes. A beaker. An excellent idea.
Oh, Monsieur Curie?
Yes?
I've just written you a letter. I wonder, would it be impolite to give it to you instead of posting it?
No, but please.
It's just a note to say thank you for your paper on symmetry.
I hoped you might find it of some value.
I did. I was most interested, especially in the symmetry of a magnetic field. I thought...
Hadn't you better be going in, mademoiselle? I know how you hate to be late for class.
Yes, of course.
Shall I hope to see you tomorrow, mademoiselle?
No, I should be far too busy.
By the way, there's a meeting of the Physics Society on Tuesday. Gustave Le Bon will be reading a paper.
Yes, I'm going to that. Excuse me.
Uh,
And you're not going to apply for the post?
No.
Why not?
Well, it's not at all certain that he's going to resign. And even if he does, it's highly unlikely they'd offer me the professorship.
But you will finish your doctoral thesis, won't you?
Oh, I suppose so. I should have done it years ago. I'm not sure it would have made any difference, though.
Oh, but surely
by the
if
way,
you've got your doctorate...
I brought you the Zola.
Oh, thank you. I shall look forward to reading it.
Have you made any decision yet about going back to Poland?
Yes, at the end of term.
Well, I really meant whether you're going.
Oh, I don't think that's ever been in question.
I wonder if you've considered it carefully enough, mademoiselle. It seems to me that you have a quite remarkable aptitude for scientific work. That's a very rare and precious gift, mademoiselle. I'm not sure you have the right to waste it.
Oh, I have no intention of wasting it. I mean to use it and to pass it on. Oh. Forgive me, monsieur. I know you mean well, but unless you've actually lived in Poland, you cannot possibly understand.
Well, Poland isn't the only place where people have to resist oppression. My father was in the Revolution of '48.
Oh.
You see, we still have a good deal to learn about one another, mademoiselle. He was at the barricades in 1870. My brother Jacques and I were with him.
Fighting?
No. He was a doctor by that time. We were helping him to attend the wounded. Would you think better of me if I'd been putting bullets into people rather than taking them out?
No.
At least I assume we would have been on the same side of the barricades.
Your father sounds admirable.
Oh, you'd like him, I know. You must meet my parents. We could go down there at the end of term.
But I'm leaving straight after the examination.
And not coming back.
I don't expect so. I have to go back. I promised myself I would. I have to help.
Forgive me, mademoiselle, but you are still very young. And when we're young and feel very deeply about injustice and oppression, we sometimes think that the course which involves us in the greatest personal sacrifice is bound to be the one which will benefit humanity.
What sacrifice would I be making? I should continue my work, but for my own country.
But where in Poland would you get the equipment? How would you know what was happening in other places where science is free? Mademoiselle, I must ask you to remember two things. In politics, we can never clearly foresee the results of our actions, but in science, we can hope to understand both the causes and the effects. If we're fortunate, we may add to our understanding of the universe and benefit the whole of humanity, not just part of it. But even if we fail, At least we'll have done no harm.
And the other thing?
That you must choose between them, mademoiselle. If you intend doing anything worthwhile in science, you must give your whole life to it. I'm absolutely certain of that.
At least let me carry something.
No, thank you. I can manage. Goodbye.
Not goodbye. Au revoir.
I shan't be coming back.
You mean this is really the end?
Monsieur Lamotte, your question's absurd. There can't be an end to something that never began.
Nothing could have given me greater pleasure than to get news of you. The prospect of remaining 2 months without hearing about you had been extremely disagreeable to me. That is to say, your little note was more than welcome. You see, it is already agreed that we shall be great friends. But if you were to remain in Poland, it would be altogether too platonic a friendship. That of two creatures who would never see each other again.
You do know she's coming back, don't you?
Yes, I had a letter this morning. Did she give you any date?
No. She just said at the end of the month. Do please sit down.
Thank you.
She didn't say what had changed her mind.
No, I'm sure she's doing the right thing. Warsaw would have been no place for her now.
She only said she was coming back for 1 more year.
Well, a lot can happen in a year. She sent me a photograph.
Oh, did she?
As you probably guessed how I feel about her. I wondered, when she comes back, whether you would talk to her, if you're not totally opposed to the idea, that is.
No. It would be hard for Father to lose both of us to Paris. But it would be wonderful for us to have her living so near.
Of course, I realize I have very little to offer her.
Very little. Oh, you mean financially? That wouldn't weigh with her in the least.
No, I know. But something seems to be troubling her.
Well, I think Maria values her independence. She had to fight very hard to get it. And it's not going to be easy to persuade her to give it up now.
You have not replied to my previous letter. Perhaps it had not arrived, or was it perhaps too forward? There was not much particular in it. I asked you if you would like to rent an apartment with me in Rue Mouffetard. Perhaps I forgot to say that the apartment can be divided into 2 parts. Believe me, your very devoted Pierre Curie. You did say that you wanted to meet them.
Yes, but not yet.
Why?
Well, because if I go to meet your parents only 2 days after coming back from Poland, they'll think I'm trying to attach myself to you.
They'll think nothing of the kind. Why should they?
Because you're their son, I suppose.
But they're not at all like that. Anyway, isn't that partly why you did come back?
No, I came back to study for my teaching fellowship.
Only that? You did send me your photograph.
You asked me for it.
Yes, I know I did. Marie?
I'm sorry, but you talk as if I'd somehow committed myself, and I haven't.
Oh. Well, I'll write and tell them then.
No, please. I'd like to meet them.
I've been keeping this for a special occasion. When Jacques was in Paris, you know, whenever he visited us, he used to bring a crowd of young people to stay the weekend, sleeping on the floor sometimes. But Pierre... Sophie!
Mm-hmm.
Ah, there you are. Pierre is too much the other way.
Oh, Jane.
Hmm?
I thought you were going to change your shirt.
Oh, nonsense. Nothing wrong with it. Sunday is a day to be comfortable. Don't you agree, mademoiselle? She doesn't look as if she gets enough to eat. It's a very silly fad with students nowadays not looking after themselves.
Jane.
What? Well, I'm trying to get her to talk. She hasn't said anything yet.
Have you given her a chance?
Ah.
agree with you about Sundays.
You see, she agrees with me. But naturally, she's a rationalist, she's a scientist. Top of her year in physics and mathematics too?
No, I only came second in mathematics.
Only came second. There we are.
Thank you.
Now, we're very delighted to meet you, my dear.
You do your own cooking, mademoiselle?
I keep it very simple.
We had a wonderful apple crop last year.
Yeah.
You must take some back with you.
I can't compel her to marry me.
Look, if you let her get away, you'll be a fool.
She'll do exactly what she wants to do. I can only wait until she makes up her mind. All right, maybe I am a fool. In that case, maybe I don't deserve her.
Oh, good God in heaven, boy. Since when have women married the men who deserve them? Tenacity is what does it. Now, take my advice. Take your doctorate. And when you're examined for it, make sure she's there. As for money, we'll accept that offer from the optical firm. It won't take much of your time. Oh, it's all very well striking lofty attitudes about the purity of science. But she can't live on air. Neither can you.
He neglects himself when he's in Paris. I'm sure that he does.
All of us are inclined to that, madame, when we're absorbed in our work.
But it's much harder for a man to be alone.
I see no reason why that should be.
Neither can I. But you'll find that it is so.
Well, it's not a thing that can be proved either way.
Mademoiselle, shall I tell you something? You are the first woman who has really captured Pierre's interest for 20 years.
Well, perhaps that's why he's done so much work.
My father was saying how very much he liked you.
Oh. I'm glad. I like him very much.
Have you thought any more about my suggestion?
Yes, I have.
I only meant if it was the idea of marriage itself you didn't like. You see, if we divided the apartment into two, you would still be free, as you call it. You could go on with your work just as you do now.
No, it's out of the question.
Then I can see only one alternative. If you're quite determined to go back to Warsaw at the end of this year, will you marry me if I promise to come too?
To Warsaw?
Yes.
No, I can't. I won't allow that.
How could you stop me coming?
But you couldn't. You mustn't leave Paris. Your work is too important.
There is only one thing important to me now.
When's he being examined for his doctorate?
Next week.
Are you going?
I want to go. Now his parents have suggested that we all go together.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Nothing. Except that I feel things are closing in on me. They're all willing it to happen.
Oh, that's only because they're fond of your minutiae.
I think Dr. Curie likes me.
And Madame?
I think she sees me as her last hope of a grandchild. Her health isn't very good. It does repel me a little to think I'm being looked at in that light.
Manya, if that's what you feel, I think perhaps you're right not to marry him.
So you think it wouldn't be wise?
I think perhaps it wouldn't be kind. And if you're not going to marry him, you ought to stop seeing him.
But Bronya, I like seeing him. I'd miss him dreadfully now.
Well, then?
They are all accurate to within 2 or 3%.
You name 3 groups of substances. In effect, the strongly magnetic, the feebly magnetic, and the feebly diamagnetic. Have you ever considered the possibility of the existence of any strongly diamagnetic substance?
I have been looking for such a substance for 5 or 6 years. My results have all been negative.
Have you published any of this?
No.
In that section, you appear to have opened up new ground.
Plucker published
Well,
it.
largely new ground. But with the ferromagnetic substances, what made you feel that Hopkinson's work needed to be extended?
He studied the properties of iron only up to the temperature of transformation. I wanted to cover much wider variations of temperature and magnetic field to get a comprehensive picture of what was taking place.
And what did you conclude from it?
Between the two paramagnetic groups of substances, I would submit that a very close relationship has been proved to exist. But it seems clear that this continuum does not extend to the third group, which suggests to me that the causes of magnetism and the causes of diamagnetism are not related to one another, even inversely. They must be entirely separate and distinct.
Congratulations.
Well, that was the way to do it, eh? No religious mumbo-jumbo, no gold rings and shibboleths, no dressing up in sacrificial white. Just a man and a woman. Oh, my dear. Isn't she beautiful?
Yes. That color becomes you, my dear. You look very pretty.
It was a wedding present from Kazimier's mother.
Poor old lady, what a time we had. White, she says. No, please, not white, says Skłodowska. I beg her pardon, Madame Curie. Pink with rosebuds. No, no. Lilac with lace. No, please, Madame, I want something dark and hard-wearing I can wear afterwards in the laboratory.
Dr. Curie, in Maria you will have a daughter worthy of affection. Since she came into the world, she has never given me pain.
Professor Skłodowski, Maria jest me bardzo droga. Zawsze będzie kochał.
Więc się byś jeszcze kochał.
Good man, excellent.
Problem?
I asked Bronya about the macaroni sticking. She says it helps to start with boiling water.
Ah.
Although I think it's only liable to happen in the final 3 to 3.5 minutes. I'll time it tomorrow.
Well, I'd be perfectly happy whatever you gave me to eat.
I am getting better. Besides, every time we go to sew, I'm worried that your mother's going to ask me something about housekeeping and find out how little I know.
Mother wants to know if we want some more furniture.
What did you say?
Well, I said no, it'd only be more things to clean. You haven't got time.
Perhaps one more chair.
Then if anyone came in, they'd sit on it.
And then stay.
No chair, then.
No.
Mama, shouldn't we take you in before the sun goes down?
Oh, not yet. Reach the dusk. Come here, my dear.
Oh, they're very beautiful.
You'll find 3 of everything. Except the vests. I've still one more to finish.
You mustn't do it if it tires you.
Oh, I enjoy it.
Thank you.
Anyway, now that the weather's improving, you'll soon start to feel better.
Oh, we can't expect that, my dear. Not with cancer.
When did he tell you?
Oh, I've known for some time.
Excuse me.
Ah, I like to catch up with the chores while there's someone here to talk to.
I've had a letter from my father.
Oh, how is he?
Oh, he's well, thank you. He's come all the way to Port Blanc to stay with my sister Ella. I was going to join them there now that my fellowship examination is over.
But you deserve a holiday. That was a splendid result. No nonsense about only a second this time, eh?
But if Madame Curie...
My dear, if you're asking for a prognosis, it can only be 5 or 6 weeks at the most.
Then I should stay with Pierre.
I think there's nothing that you can do here. Your father expects to see you. Besides, Jacques is coming soon. Perhaps Pierre can join you then for a few days. You'll take his mind off everything.
Thank you.
Why not write a thesis on magnetism, the subject by no means exhausted?
Well, that's your field.
Well, I haven't got a monopoly. Welcome to my field.
I want something of my own.
Well, there's always X-rays. Everyone's talking about them.
I would make it a race, though. Several other people already ahead.
Yes, and you've got to bear in mind you have no laboratory of your own, precious little equipment, and practically no money to buy any.
At least that narrows the choice. What I'd really like is something that nobody else is working on.
Can't think of anything like that. Except Becquerel rays. Even he never found an explanation. Must be something there worth following up. Marie, do you realize that if you get this doctorate, you'll be the first woman in Europe to do so?
Oh.
What is it?
I'm very sorry, Pierre. I think we'll have to go home.
Ah.
Would you like to hold her?
Yes.
What's the matter?
Nothing. Only Oh, Pierre, I've been so stupid. I didn't think of it like this at all. She's a person. We'll have someone else living with us.
Do you remember the first time you showed Maria's photograph to Jacques?
He said she looked stubborn.
Well, you've got another stubborn one there. Just look at that chin.
What are you calling her?
Irene.
Peace.
That's right.
You'll be all right now. She'll settle down now.
Marie? How is she?
Oh, she's quiet now. She cried for another 2 hours after you left. I'm sorry, I didn't have the time.
Oh, that doesn't matter. Do you think there's something wrong with her?
I don't know. I checked everything in my mind. She shouldn't have been hungry. I made sure she wasn't wet, she wasn't feverish, she can't be teething yet. I think the sleep pattern changes. I'll try her 10 minutes later each time and keep a record till I find out what time she is ready to sleep. Shall I cook you something?
Oh, no, don't trouble.
I've been thinking I shouldn't go on trying to feed her.
Oh? Why, is she losing weight again?
No. No, it's just that she's so slow. She stops in the middle of it. It takes hours every time.
What can we do?
We could get a nurse.
Can we afford it?
I'll find ways of managing. It would be so much better in every way. The nurse could even take her out, and I could get some reading done instead of having to wait till she's asleep.
Marie, suppose you dropped any idea of working on Becquerel rays, just for the time being. Just relax. Sleep whenever she sleeps. It'd be so much better for both of you. Just for a year.
A year? I've worked for 6 years just to draw level. And suppose we have another child. Pierre, you said we should both work side by side, equal.
Yes, and we will. We'll get a nurse.
I do love her, Pierre.
Yes, I know you do.
Yes. I didn't realize it got into this state. Suppose I say yes. How long do you want it for?
Well, it isn't really for me. It's for my wife.
Good God. I thought she just had a baby last week.
No. She's 8 weeks old now.
8 weeks? And what's she going to do with it? Bring it with her?
No, we've hired a nurse.
With all due respect to her ability, Curie, and I've got every respect for it, as you well know, she can't be a good mother and a good scientist. Not at the same time.
She can try.
Well, there are no facilities here, you know, for any proper research. All right, she can have it. But I warn you, This place is damp at the best of times and freezing in winter. I hope she knows what she's doing, hmm?
Did you manage to get copies of the Becquerel photographs?
Hmm? Oh, yes. Here we are. Now, that's the first one.
This was in sunlight.
Yes, that's right. He sealed a photographic plate in black paper, small pile of uranium salts on top, and that's the mark it made right through the paper. That's the really interesting one. That's the one he left in the drawer over the weekend.
And no sunlight fell on it, so it's not phosphorescence.
No. There's no apparent source of energy for producing the rays at all. But that contradicts the law of conservation of energy.
What's the longest he kept the uranium salts in the dark?
I'm not sure. Over 6 months, anyway. And they were still active.
Extraordinary.
Well, where are you going to start, then? Becquerel covered a lot of the ground.
Yes, but only with the salts of uranium and fluorescent compounds. It may happen with other substances as well. I mean to test everything. I examined all the known elements, either in their pure state or in compounds, to discover if there were other elements with the same property as uranium. I needed to employ a precise quantitative method in order to go beyond the results reached by Becquerel. I used the excellent method developed by Pierre and Jacques Curie, the Curie electrometer.
$5 o'clock.
Yeah. Come and look at this.
Oh, it's freezing in here.
Oh, no. 6.25 degrees. I can hardly feel my feet at all. Never mind. Have a look at this.
But it isn't uranium.
No. It's a compound of thorium. But it's giving off the same rays. It is, isn't it?
So it appears so. Thorium.
It is the thorium. I've tried 2 different compounds. Months or years, you said it may take, but 6 days. I am right, aren't I, Pierre? There's no possibility there could be a mistake.
Not at all. Congratulations.
She's a wonderful child. Good night, my little princess. She's got a wonderful mother, too. Don't let her work too hard, will you?
Oh, I can't stop her. Besides, she's getting some quite remarkable results.
You mean the thorium?
Oh, no, she's finished that. Lippmann's going to read her paper to the Academy. It'll be published in their next issue.
Do you think any of the other elements are likely to have this, what do you call it?
Well, we thought radioactivity. No, apparently not. She's tested every known element.
So she's stuck then?
Oh, far from it. This week, she's been testing uranium in different compounds and under different conditions to find under which conditions radioactivity is highest. Look what she got. There, that column on the right.
So they're all much the same?
Yes.
Isn't that what she expected?
No, it shouldn't be like that. Not under different conditions. It doesn't fit in.
With what?
Everything we know about energy and matter.
Well, it looks as though it must have something to do with whatever all these have in common.
Precisely, but that's the point. They've nothing in common. Only the actual uranium atoms. But an atom can't produce energy.
I see. So it doesn't seem to lead you anywhere, then, huh?
Not on its own.
Oh, what do you propose to do?
I shall go on collecting facts until I find some explanation.
Oh, these are exciting times for you.
Well, most people wouldn't think so. We never go anywhere. Well, except you and the Dluskis.
Well, you've got the work and Iran and each other.
ask him now.
Why don't you come and live with us?
Oh, no, but Mary's got too much to cope with already. She wouldn't want to know, man. No, I couldn't.
I wish you would. You see, if you wouldn't mind too much...
Wouldn't mind?
I'm thinking of Irene. I can leave her with Estelle while she's a baby, but once she starts talking and asking questions, it's going to be very important who she's with during the daytime.
You know, I'm rather good with children.
I know you are. Having completed my examination of the elements and simple compounds, I then moved on to measure the possible radioactivity of impure minerals and natural ores.
Sorry. I don't know how they can expect me to teach them physics when they haven't yet grasped mathematics. I waste hours this way.
Pierre, you know that table I worked out for the radioactivity of uranium?
Hmm?
Well, assuming that that was correct...
It was correct.
Well, using that as a comparison, I tested a sample of raw pitch blende this morning. It's 4 times as radioactive as uranium.
Say that again.
You haven't been listening.
The natural ore is 4 times more radioactive than the element it contains.
Yes.
4 times. But that means that radioactivity cannot be an atomic property after all.
Unless there's something else in the pitch blende, apart from the uranium and apart from the thorium. Something else again.
But what else could it be? You proved yourself that none of the other elements are radioactive.
I know. None of the known ones.
Marie...
Something else, that's all I said, some other substance. But I think it must be a new element. What else can it be? And I think I ought to say so.
Published?
I shall add it to the end of the thorium paper before Professor Lippmann reads it out to the Academy.
These 2 minerals, the pitch blende and the chalcolite, are considerably more active than uranium itself. This is very remarkable and leads to the belief that these minerals may contain an element which is much more active than uranium. Artificial chalcolite, which I produce by the Debray process, is no more active than any other uranium salt.
Thank you, Professor Lippmann. Are there any questions on Madame Curie's paper?
Well, I found the paper most informative. Although, with respect, I do consider Madame Curie's proposition of a new element in pitchblende is based on so little evidence as to be somewhat speculative. Nevertheless, her observation that Becquerel rays are produced by the element thorium is fascinating. These findings provide very useful confirmation of the work done by Schmidt, published in Berlin 2 months ago. And I would like to know in more detail how the experiment was carried out.
Oh, I wouldn't have minded if they'd reasoned or argued about the new element, but they just ignored it. As for the thorium...
Well, you mustn't be too disappointed. It was just bad luck about that German.
No. I'll always be afraid of it happening again. Someone with better equipment and plenty of assistants getting there just ahead of me.
Well, then, the sooner you get started, the better. How much pitch blende are you going to need to isolate the new element?
I thought I'd begin with 100 grams.
It would be quicker with 2.
2 what?
People. You and me.
Would you? But what about your work on crystals?
Well, I can go back to that later.
Oh, Pierre. It is good of you.
That's not good. It's just more sensible. This is more important than anything I'm doing at the moment.
It is, isn't it?
I may as well work on it. I spend half my time thinking about it anyway. Now, we know that the uranium and the thorium are in the solution. So if there's any radioactivity in the residue, it can't be the uranium, it can't be the thorium. It's bound to be what we're looking for.
Pierre, may I? That's where it is, then.
Good. We can start work on extracting it tomorrow.
I was right, wasn't I?
Naturally. So where shall I put this?
Oh, in the cupboard there.
And you must come and stay with us in Zakopane. Whenever you can get away.
Pierre can brush up his Polish. Lovely place, Maria. A brand new sanatorium, green hills, fresh air.
You should be very happy there.
Well, it's not Warsaw, but at least it's Poland. Oh, I nearly forgot.
Oh, what's that for?
That is for making Poland one of the few nations in the world to have an element named after it.
We haven't proved it yet.
I'm sure you will. I'd have thought you'd have called it curium, but polonium is beautiful.
Well, Pierre said if we called it curium, people would think he'd discovered it.
That was nice of him. He's a very nice fellow. And even I can see that Skłodowskium would have been rather a mouthful.
I shall miss you both so much. It's never felt quite like a foreign country as long as I could come here.
Nonsense, girl. There are dozens of Polish people who'll be delighted to see you. Look, I'll give you a list of names and addresses.
Kazimierz.
Splendid people. Doors open anytime.
Kazimierz, I don't have the time to
Well,
spare.
make time. You can't be working all day and all evening. That's it, isn't it? Up to your old tricks again.
How much bismuth does your sample contain?
Quite a high proportion, we think.
Well, there's the bismuth spectrum.
So, if there are any additional lines on our plate...
That'll be your polonium, unless there's some other impurity there. I'm sorry, madame.
Oh, isn't that something there?
Not really, I'm afraid. Still, we knew it was only an outside chance. A new element is a rare event.
Perhaps there wasn't a high enough concentration.
It's possible. I can't always get clear lines with a known element. You could still be right.
We are right, Monsieur de Marseille. She's got another tooth, Pierre. That's 7.
Clever girl.
Marie, we still haven't explained why pitchblende is 4 times more radioactive than uranium. The polonium's active, but not active enough.
Could it have lost activity as we purified it?
No, it doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't.
Oh. We must have made a wrong measurement somewhere. Again.
Not necessarily.
What do you mean?
What if there was something else in it as well?
But there was nothing left, only bismuth.
I don't mean in the residue. Something that got through into the solution. There could be two new elements. The polonium that came out in the residue, and the other one left in the solution. What's funny about that?
Oh, Marie, if you're going to make a habit of discovering a new element every 6 months, there won't be enough room for them in the periodic table.
But it could have happened.
All right, I know. But we'll do some tests when we get back.
Could we go back tomorrow? That's all there is.
That's all I need. Well, let's hope for a better result than we got with the polonium. Have you got a name for this one?
Radium. Even that sample, which we think is mostly barium, is 400 times more radioactive than uranium.
Really? And what are you going to do now this is all gone?
Process enough pitch blend to yield a really pure radium sample. I want to make an atomic weight determination.
Ah, but the clear spectrum, if we get one, is just as acceptable a method for establishing a new element.
I want no doubts this time, Monsieur de Marseille.
I see. Now, how much pitch blend will you need?
We think the radium is present in about 1 part in 10 million. So I think we'll need about 1 ton.
1 ton? Madame Curie, you can't be serious.
Perfectly serious.
But how are you going to pay for it, and where are you going to work on it?
We'll need a bigger laboratory, certainly.
Indeed you will, and assistants.
It's a pity Schutzenberger is retired.
Yes, Gariel may well prove a stumbling block.
Monsieur de Marseille, nobody ever gets anything done by looking at the difficulties.
How Madame arrives at her goal is open to discussion, but failure to get there simply does not arise.
Now, beautiful. That should give a good result. Well, if you care to come back in the morning, I'll have the plate ready for you to examine. No, don't worry. Unlike you, madame, I am not always perfectly serious. We'll develop it now. And there we have the barium.
And what's that?
Oh, that's your radium.
Oh. Pierre's late. What are you doing?
I'm drafting a letter ordering 1 ton of pitch blend.
Oh. How much is that going to cost?
Well, I think I've arrived at a very fair figure. You see, there's a mine in Joachimsthal owned by the Austrian government to extract uranium from pitch blend.
Yes.
The pitch blend waste is then dumped in a pine forest. It's of no use to them, but it's just what we need because the uranium's already been extracted. So I'm offering to take some of it off their hands, actually free of charge.
That's what I call a fair figure. Do you think they'll agree?
I don't know. I don't know how to write to governments. So I'm writing to the Academy of Science in Vienna, asking them to put our case. I've asked them to stress that the aim of our research is purely scientific.
Well, from what I know of governments, they don't give a tinker's curse for pure science.
No. What should I say, then?
Is radium ever going to be of use for anything?
Ah, I hadn't even thought of that. I suppose it might one day.
Well, I think you want to put it more strongly than that. The government needs convincing that it stands to gain something.
And that this research may well benefit the Joachimsthal factory, who could then profit from the otherwise valueless residue.
But when Dr. Schutzenberger was director, he seemed to think that
I
our work
am
was...
not interested in what Dr. Schutzenberger did or did not do. You have already been given 1 room for your personal use. I'm not proposing at the moment to revoke that permission, though I'd be fully entitled to. But a line has to be drawn somewhere.
We would be vacating that room, Dr. Gariel. We need a much bigger place now.
Then I'm afraid you must look elsewhere.
It might be a very long time before we could find such a place at a price we could afford, Dr. Gariel. And meantime, there's the problem of the ore.
And that's another thing, Madame Curie. When I was induced to give permission for samples to be delivered to the schoolyard, you certainly didn't make it plain that the consignment would be on that scale, not to mention your processing chemicals. I consider I was grievously misled.
If we had a place to work in, we could begin processing it. Otherwise, I don't see how it's to be disposed of.
A way will have to be found, madame. I have nothing further to add. Well, what you're asking for is absolutely impossible. You know perfectly well. Every inch of space in the building is fully occupied and in constant use. We've even had to convert the cellar into a dissecting room since the old shed became unfit to use.
Then could we have the old shed?